Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitchell Pattinson, and as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy. Credit to you, mate, because I mean, obviously, as people have been watching the last few episodes, I've been away on a great holiday in America. A slight flex, but I mean, absolutely awesome that you've been actually doing episodes over the past few weeks. Because I know I wouldn't have been able to do that because actually just being able just to consistently upload, but also to really just dig down and just try and just find a way to get the time to do it and to actually upload and stuff. That was just brilliant. So credit to you. But to move on to our Carlton sort of things, we haven't been there greatest in the past 4 weeks. But first things first, Daff, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. It's good to have you back. Obviously you've told us about the trip. It's he's been everywhere, this bloke. He's been all over the place, but he's finally back, and it's good to actually speak to someone on a video now instead of just speaking to myself and listening to my stupid voice all the time. But like we touched on before, it's a bit worrying the stage we're in currently. I know it's round 7, but if it continues this way, I think we're in for another kind of wasted season, which we can't really afford because time's ticking.
Yeah, and to quickly touch on that, also, I don't understand how that could really happen this year for it to be a wasted season, because I reckon we were all very up and about these guys would have been hurting after that round 23 game last season. Surely they would have been motivated to step up the game and really well and truly get themselves into this final spot. But I mean, I don't want to speak too early. I know it's way too early to tell, but it seems almost like we've gone backwards. Also, like our game plan, we've gone backwards in defensive, Duffy boy. so we'll get firstly start on to the preview of the West Coast game this week. It's round 7. It's very quickly our season. It's amazing how quickly this season has already gone for it to be round 7. But obviously, it's the 29th of April this Sunday, 7:30 p.m. At Optus Stadium. So West Coast, I mean, we know that West Coast aren't the greatest side in the AFL right now. They're obviously going to probably try and transition to a rebuilding stage, but it's a game a few weeks ago that we were pretty much guaranteed to win. But after these past 2 weeks, after the last week's loss against Dakota, but also the thumping against Adelaide, and watching them against Hawthorn on the weekend as well, it makes you nervous because Hawthorn almost beat them. And yes, it was down in Tassie. Yes, it's a different game plan, but it doesn't matter because you actually are losing by almost 10 goals against this team of Adelaide, who isn't meant to be as good as they look to be. So first things first, Daff, this week, what are your first initial thoughts?
I'm not going to say response because we didn't get a response last week. I think we just need this is where you got to draw the line in the sand, I think, right now in the season. Do it early. Just get it, obviously changes, players going in and out. You got to change something. You got to bring some energy, into the side. Like you said, obviously West Coast are in that kind of awkward stage where they've still got, quality, players, but they're also on the other end of the ground, they're not too great, are they? But it's nervous because, it's one of those games, West Coast, you go over there. We're typically good in Perth, which is a good sign, but yeah, geez, if we lose this week, Pato, I'm not going to be looking at social media comments.
Oh, but it's just unbelievable to actually think that I think right now the competition is in very good hands because all the teams, like on their day, they can give it a red hot crack against the best in the competition. But it's a game where you shouldn't be feeling nervous. You should be able to rely on this team well enough that you think, well, our game plan is better than their game plan. We can go up, and if we can just kind of, I guess, just be solid enough, we can definitely beat these guys. We aren't in the younger stages of our rebuild anymore. We spoke about before the episode started. We're pretty much year 8 into the rebuild. Like all these guys are getting older. Patrick Cripps is 28. In 2 years' time, he's 30. So he's starting to get to the twilight of his career, which is unbelievable to actually think about. But I mean, we will touch on a lot of things through this episode. We'll kind of see how the episode is kind of where it goes in a way. But I mean, first things first, we're going to start off with the injuries that are right now within the club. No injuries from the AFL game, which is always good. But of course, what we'll touch on later on is Jesse Motlop is to miss this week because of a suspension that he did for that dangerous tackle. There's people who are saying that the game's gone soft, but also there's the other side of the spectrum where you can't do that. You can't do the sling tackle. Yes, it wasn't as hard, but you just can't do that because you need to protect your head. I don't mind it, but if you saw a similar action to like in another game, then that's when it's different. Like in another game and he gets off, that's when it's different. So I'm glad that they're sticking to it. But to touch on a few of these injuries, Jack Martin, another 3 weeks added to his fucking calf, Daff. That's what I've written there, and that's exactly where I stand with it. How this guy has turned a 1 week injury into almost 6 weeks. Mind-boggling that, but anyway. Caleb Marchbank 2 weeks away with also a calf. David Cunningham 2 to 3 weeks away, but I think he might be a little bit sooner than that. Not too sure. We've just had an update through the just before we start the episode. Matt always 2 to 3 weeks. Very important out, that guy, I reckon. Always. Yep. I think he's vital into this lineup. So as soon as he's fit to play, he needs to play. Sam Doherty, knee, 2 to 4 weeks. That's kind of scheduled, what we kind of expected. And Adam Sard is expected to play this week. But out of those guys, who do you think is the most vital to come back into this side?
Oh, I think it's the last two. I think it's obviously Doherty and Sard. I think we missed them heaps on the weekend, just driving the ball forward. Their meters gained most weeks are fantastic, and the meters gained for majority of our playing list on the weekend was pretty piss poor. So, Sard's massive for us. I think he can really work well with a Cincotta, who I thought was actually one of our better players on the weekend. Took the game on a few times. He did get done holding the ball in the middle of the ground, but he was in the middle of the ground, Pato. So, which we were not much. Yeah. You were in the middle much of the game, but yeah, Doc and Sard, and obviously Owies, as you touched on earlier, and the other ones. The importance at zero for mine right now because they don't play enough games of footy for the footy club. So I don't really count them in the best 22 kind of talk.
Yeah, and then like they are pretty constructive words, and it's pretty spot on because David Cunningham, for the probably first few years of his AFL career, he was really just a new shed of light for this side. And ever since he got that ACL injury in 2021 against Melbourne, he hasn't played a game, which is shocking. And Caleb Marchbank, wow, it's unfortunate because last year we saw a few games from him and he looked solid, but then he got another injury, and I'm like, how could this happen again? Jack Martin, don't even want to get me started. Like the amount of money that we paid for this guy. I know that it's front end, but it doesn't fucking matter. Like this player was a guy that I don't know if it's the coaches Andrew Russell not being professional enough to give these guys a correct program for their injury, or if it's the actual player not doing the correct rehab. It's so many unknowns. And I can't believe we're into round 7 of a year that we're meant to be somewhat decent with so many questions, like with so many more questions than answers, which is just, I don't understand it. But before we get into the actual preview of the game, I just have a few questions to ask because obviously I watched it, the game. It was quarter to the final siren sounded at 1:45, quarter to 2 in the morning. In LA when I was watching it, and I was watching it with one of my good mates, and I was absolutely pissed. I was actually laughing because I'm like, how are we going through this again? But I've just got a few questions to ask. This will probably take maybe a few minutes. But first things first, probably what the question that a lot of people are asking: do we swing the axe this week, Duffy boy?
Yeah, I think we do. I think as you can see with the Motlop charge, we're not challenging it because I really think he was going to get dropped. Or managed. I think we have to swing the axe. I'm not sure how many. Obviously, Sard comes in. I think Cowan's probably due for a month or so in the twos, just to get nothing wrong. He's been okay, but you can just tell that he's probably just played a few too many games. Currently, so obviously Sard comes in for Cowan. I think one of the mids have to go. I think we've got too many mids. We talk about a midfield depth, and we've almost got the whole fucking depth in the team. I think it's time for an to make way. I heard on someone on the fan cams the other day saying, if you told me 6-7 years ago that Ed Curnow would still be playing, you'd probably laugh at them. But we love Ed, but I think it's time to go. And then I'm looking at this team. You almost go, it's tough to say, man. Well, I think Honey has to go as well. You might bring a Fogarty for him, I think, maybe. He's been good in the twos. Probably Dow for Ed Curnow. I think Paddy Dow needs a chance.
Yeah.
He's had 35 plus the last 4 weeks. When is he ever going to play? What's the point of having him if you're not going to fucking play him? Provides a bit of energy in the midfield. And then you look at a team and you go, probably lucky there's a few injuries at half forward, but I think Jack Silvani's on the cusp.
Yep.
Now, I'm not trying to be mean here. I just don't really know what he's added this year.
Yeah.
In terms of like, what, you know what I mean? Like, is he, what is he? Yeah. Like, he's a half forward, doesn't kick enough goals, misses important goals like he did on the weekend, doesn't do enough around the ground. And then obviously you got to bring in TDK. So you almost go TDK for Silvani, but then we look too big again. So it's really tough. It's going to be really tough, the selection committee with the coaches, but we'll let them figure it out because they get paid enough. So
because, I mean, like obviously later on in the episode we'll try and touch on a few changes that we both think will make. We don't know who we've chosen. I've written mine down. I assume you've written yours down. It's going to be interesting to see if I know with me, with what I'm choosing, I'm swinging the axe. But you mentioned there about how with Silvani, we don't want to hurt the feelings. We don't want to. No, but this is a thing, and we spoke about before the episode once again. There was someone on the fan camps, not too sure who he was, but he spoke so well, and he mentioned about Ken Hinckley and how if he sees a pathetic performance, doesn't matter if it's the captain, doesn't matter if it's the best player on the ground, he will swing the axe. If you're not doing your job, you need to have a reality check. You need to go back into the VFL and get yourself, I guess, redeveloped in a way mentally to come back into the side. You can't have the mentality to think that you're going to play every single week in this senior spot. It doesn't make sense to me. I know that we've both played football. You played a lot more than me, but I know that I've played. And when you're in the resis, you want to try and work towards a senior spot. And you want to try and work on your craft so you can be the best player you can be. It just seems like there's a lot of these players that know that they're going to get a senior spot every week, so they don't mind. But if you give them the reality check of, mate, I'm not copying that. Like, you need to go back and refine your form because that's not fucking good enough in this side. And I'm surprised Vossi hasn't done that as of yet. I think I would assume he would do that this week, but I think he needs to swing the axe because as a footballer, he was so ruthless and so just, I guess, brutal in a way, like the way that he played, but he hasn't really brought that into his coaching this season. And last season as well. I mean, last season was, it's kind of hard to tell last season because we were better. This week, he just needs to make a statement this week, whether it's selection or game plan. I don't know what it is. Needs to do it. So to touch on our game plan, do we need to change our system?
Do we have one? Like, do we have one? I don't think we do. What's going on there? It's giving me David Teague vibes, but no, we need to change something, and it needs to be done this week.
Yep.
It's an important week. I know, we're not taking them lightly here, West Coast. I don't want to get cut and clipped here and put it on TikTok and making fun of the Eagles. They're going to be good, but this is the week where you've got to make your changes to your system, to your playing group. It's just, I don't know, you got to try something. I think we just need to get back to that kind of chaos ball, pressure up forward, getting it forward, anything to get the ball forward. You're allowed to switch the ball here and there, but all week, all Sunday, like the Saints were just watching us. Like the people laughing in the crowd, Saints fans laughing at us fucking around with it. Like there was like, I won't touch on it too deeply, but there's like moments where you're at half forward and it ends up at half back. What's going on there? Like that shows no system at all. We got cut apart through the middle as well. They didn't score that much, but we did get cut apart a fair few times just due to us not being high enough up the ground.
Yeah.
We just looked incredibly slow, and the system just needs to change, and we need to sort something out ASAP because we've got Brisbane next week who have had a good system for how long with Fagan? 6 years, 6, 7 years. So it'll be tough.
Yep, completely agree. Next question to quickly touch on these last two. Michael Voss, is he under pressure?
Yes, he's under pressure. I don't think not about job, but just him and the coaches are under pressure. They have to be. They have to be under pressure as a whole, because if you're letting your side, our ball use on the weekend in terms of just chipping it around for 4 quarters, like how do you let that happen for 1 quarter?
Yeah,
let alone 4. So yes, he is under pressure and very under pressure by a lot of Carlton supporters right now.
And actually, I'm glad you said that because it actually transitions to my last question, which is, do we blame the coaches too much? Like, I know that there is some system errors in this whatever system it is, that there are game plan errors that we are mentally too defensive, but also not on the players and what they actually do on their ground. I know, especially on the weekend, that was probably the game that was evident most to me was how defensive we fucking were on the weekend. I mean, we touched on a few players. I'll touch on Adam Chera because he was probably the only one who could really hold his head high from the game. But he picked up the ball and it seemed like automatic. I mean, we spoke about it once again before the episode. It seemed like he had an earpiece in that as soon as you got it, goals are that way, he turns this way and goes back towards the quarterback as such, Wiedering. But Wiedering does the same thing to chip it back to the other side. It doesn't make sense to me. Because also at 3/4 time and got leading into the 4th quarter, what changed? I was expecting some sort of a change where there's no way they can cop with this shit anymore. This 4th quarter, they have to be ruthless. We pretty much kept the same margin from the 3rd quarter to the final siren. I don't understand how that can happen when you've got a guy like Charlie Curnow, who's one of the best key forwards in the game right now, and Harry Mackay, who we'll also touch on later on in the episode, who isn't in the greatest form, but he's also a threat. So to get the ball down there, I think is vital. So we'll move on to a little bit more into what we might see this week against the Eagles. Potential inclusions. So we obviously touched on Jesse Mollop to miss this Saturday. And Sardit is Sardi. Sard is expected to play. But I mean, obviously, we'll touch on a little bit more towards the changes that we will make and who we think will come in and out. But I'll touch on this right now, and I want your opinion. If Kennedy is to play half back, what is the point in that? Like he had 22 touches on the weekend. You look at the stats and be like, oh, okay, well he played a solid game. Kennedy is a midfielder. He's not a half backer. It's David Teague and Bolton all over again. It seems. They're playing out of their position. We saw it the week before against Adelaide. Hewitt and Chera playing on the half-back flank. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I think what needs to happen, because I think you need to keep Cripps, Chera, Walsh, Kennedy, and Hewitt all in the side. You can. We saw it last year. You need to have Kennedy more as that half-forward, mid rotation where you start on the half-forward line, but you become a mid. That we also saw with Walsh. So I think that's what needs to happen. You can't have them playing defensive because they're attacking footballers. They aren't defensive footballers. They aren't coached to be defensive. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you think there's changes with that certain position? Maybe one of those players gets dropped this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, with Sard coming in, you got another half back coming into the side. Depends if Cowan stays in or not. But I think, I actually thought he was okay. Like, I know it's weird, he shouldn't be there, but I thought he was actually okay at halfback, covering for Assad, and that he was pretty strong at the contest when it got down there. But it's just not right. I just think we have too many mids in the side. I think you got to, Ed Kernow's just got to make way. He wasn't good enough on the weekend, so. And you got to have a rotation where there's guys go on the bench too. You don't really using them on the ground all game, but I just think we're a bit slow in the midfield. And I think you got to. I know I just said we got to get rid of a midfielder, but I think Paddy Dow can come in and play that kind of half forward role as well and play in the midfield. So we just need a bit of leg speed. I just think we're extremely slow, and I think obviously Hewitt, Cripps, Kennedy, and Ed Kerno like the other week. They're not typically the quickest players, and obviously you got Chera and Walsh who are more silky and get moving. So we're a bit one-dimensional, aren't we, in the midfield? So I feel like our work at the stoppages was fantastic. We were getting our hands on it. That's been our issue all fucking year. But then we didn't go forward. So hopefully that's fixed this week. But yeah, I think midfield's a massive talking point most weeks.
Yeah. And you touched on there was a response in the midfield because you go through the stats. Adam Chera had 39 touches, best on ground for me by a country mile. Sam Walsh, 38. Blake Hakers, 36. Patrick Cripps, 34. George Hewitt, 29. Nick Newman, 28. So we had 1, 2, 3. So we had the top 6 players on the ground for disposals, highest number, and we lose the game by 22 points. Like like last year we saw that, and we were like, all those guys, all those names were always getting high in the disposals, but we won the game.
Yeah.
The disposals of these guys just weren't effective enough. Like you see, like a guy like Blake Acres, I thought he was solid, but you see, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there's players that their disposal isn't effective enough to get these high numbers. Like they don't have as much of an impact. Like you look at a guy and be like, wow, he had 30. You didn't even expect him to get that high because he just doesn't have impact on the game. I'm not going to say names. But they're also, before we get into the changes that we think we'll make, Dow, as you touched on, Jack Carroll played well in the VFL, and Jackson Binns, who is a guy that we recruited last year. Don't know what pick he was, but they all impressed in the VFL. So to quickly touch on our changes, what do you think? Do you have your changes written down? Is there anyone in particular that you're going to bring in and bring out?
Yeah, it's tough with outs. I think it's just you just don't know the mindset of the team and how they want to really approach the Eagles game. Obviously, they're a different side to St Kilda. I feel like they're a bit bigger. Yeah. Bit bigger. Obviously, not as good as St Kilda, who are currently top. Can you believe that? But yeah, I think the ins. I'll start with the ins actually. I think Sard and I think TDK has to come in. I thought Pitto he's very good in the ruck. I think he had 27 hit-outs, 18 to advantage, which is the most hit-outs to advantage this year, equal with Sean Darcy, who got the same. So he got 18 hit-outs to advantage, but he had 57 hit-outs. So it shows that whenever Pitto is getting a hit-out, he's making it worthwhile. But around the ground, he just struggles a bit. But Sard, TDK, Paddy Dow. I think it's tough between, you almost go with Carroll or Binns, but I think Carroll, it's Carroll, Binns, or Fogarty for mine is the last kind of spot. I think Fogarty can, I know he struggled. He hasn't played since I reckon round 2 last year or late, didn't play many games last year compared to 2021. But yeah, it's tough, man. But I've got Mott's obviously suspended. Honey dropped. He should never play again for Carlton. Ed Kerno. And I'm going to throw the axe. And Jack Silvani be suiting up for the Carlton reserves next weekend.
Wow. That's big. Yeah, well said, Daff. Completely agree with a lot of those names, if not all of those names. So I'll just very quickly just touch on my ins and outs. So I brought in Lockie Fogarty. So also Jackson Binns will make his debut for Carlton this week, I think, if I was the coach. TDK, I think he has to come back in. I know he was managed last week, but some people thought that he was omitted. Some people thought he was dropped. He was actually sick. So I think he pretty much has to come back in and Pitnet still keep his spot in the side. Adam Sard obviously is going to come back in if he's fit. Paddy Dow, I also agree. I think he has to come back in to add that extra leg speed. And I brought in Jordan Boyd. So I think Jordan Boyd is going to come back into the side. I reckon he was solid in the VFL for his first outing since his injury. I think he's a guy that very Williams-like. I mean, I know that last year when we were missing Williams, Jordan Boyd came in and he actually played his role. And when he made way because of injury, we were both saying we were actually missing Jordan Boyd. So how vital he would have been to, I guess, the end of last season, but also the start of this season as well, if he was fit. So they're my ins and my outs. So Jesse Motlop, obviously, I've done Lockie Cowan managed. So I think he will make way. Ed Kerno omitted. For him to have 5 touches in 3 quarters, doesn't do it. Josh Honey omitted. Completely agree. I reckon he's just, I don't know what it is, because there was so much hype when he was brought into the Carlton Football Club, and now he's just lost. I don't know if it's the coaches. I don't know what it is. So my last 2. So Jack Silvani, I have gone Jack Silvani omitted as well. Completely agree. Make a statement. We are too soft with these calls, being like, oh, nah, but he's a father-son. We can't drop Silvani. He's the heart and soul. I don't give a flying fuck. I don't give a fuck. No, but I don't give, if he's not doing his role, and I'm sorry, like, Jack Silvani is by far the most passionate footballer in the Carlton Football Club. If he's not doing his role, no offense at all. If you want to go sook about it in the VFL, you're not coming back into the AFL side. But if Jack Silvani goes back and says, oh, okay, well, that's a reality check, and earns himself back into this AFL side, that's what you want with an AFL club, isn't it? Like, you don't want to be guaranteed AFL games. So when supporters are like, oh you can't drop Sauce, can you? But you can. You actually can drop Silvani. And my last one, Zach Fisher, omitted. Zach Fisher omitted. So I've completely sided the Axe Daffy boy. 22 touches. He was okay in the first half. But I guess just the crafty sort of football IQ of Zach Fisher, where is it? He's not creative. He's not doing anything. This is one of the guys that he's 22 touches. I'm like, 22 touches? He didn't impact the game. It's like Zach Fisher, if you're getting last year, if Zach Fisher was getting 22 touches, we're winning the game by 40. Because he's just crafty. He lowers the eyes. And you're just not seeing that. And once again, it's a question whether it's the coaches, it's whether it's a question with the players. You don't know. But unfortunately, if you're not playing your role, we don't know what's happening inside the club. So Vossi might be looking at Fisher being like, mate, you did a great job on the weekend. We don't know. But us as supporters, what we expect these standards, we rate these players too highly. And it's harsh, but unfortunately, we rate these players too highly. These guys that we think that, in a couple, don't you? Like, just wait a sec. 2 years' time, they're going to be great players. Zach Fisher's 24. Like he's not a kid anymore. He's now in his mature, like he's meant to be a mature footballer, that now he's starting to work towards a senior footballer. If not, he already is. And it's definitely not a Zach Fisher. Hey, like, you know that I absolutely love Zach Fisher. I reckon when he's on, he's probably one of our most important players. But it's once again just a reality check. It's no hard feelings, but we just need more from these players. So that was my small fiery rant at these players. But anyway, move on now to the lineups across the ground. So we'll firstly touch on the back line. Lewis Young and Jacob Wiedering up against Oscar Allen and Jack Darling. First things first, Daff, what do you think of these two matchups?
I think Allen and Darling are very, very good. I think they're they're very important. I think Oscar Allen missed all of last year, due to injury, and you could kind of tell up forward they were struggling. I think obviously they still had Kennedy, but they just didn't have that kind of young star. And I think he's very good, Oscar Allen. I'd actually take him very nicely at Carlton off a half forward line. But no, Jack Darling's always good. Not always. He's one of those frustrating players. I think when he's on his day, he's fantastic, and when he's off, he's really off. But I think the focus needs to be more on these two from our team, because I think they've been off the last 2 weeks specifically. With their ball use and defensively too. I think, especially that Adelaide game, we were pretty woeful. I just think, we're talking about slow ball movement, and it stems from the back line. When you get your turnover, whatever, and one of these guys end up with the ball, they're playing it safe. They're never taking a risk. Never taking it on through the middle of the ground. If you take on the game, if you miss the kick and you're trying to take on the game, you're trying to break it over, I don't care. I don't care. Like I'd rather see us take the game on 8 times out of 10. It works and we ends up with a goal. I think that's the issue with these two. And Weeder's body language last week was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Head down all game. Even Youngie were going at it at some stage. Someone took a mark and they're both yelling at each other and pointing fingers, and that's not really what you want to see as a collective team, and especially as a back six. You don't want them arguing and stuff like that. Obviously, there's constructive feedback, but yeah, his body language looked terrible, and his season's been terrible, really. But yeah, hopefully they can stop these two.
Yeah, and so before we transition into the midfield, Jacob Wiedering, who was for most of his career, if not all of his career, he's been talked about as when he's out there playing on the field, one of the best key defenders in the game. Quite stiff that he hasn't gotten that All-Australian accolade. And probably last year was probably his best chance, and he was in the squad, but not in the team. And Lewis Young also is a guy who's had a pretty good start to the season. You touched on then about how these guys are just too defensive. Do you think that's down to these players just mentally being too defensive, or is it because there isn't a Sard or a Doherty or a Zach Williams or like even like a Jordan Boyd transitioning through there as well to give that handball? Or is it more to these guys just need it? Like Jacob Wiedering's one of the best kicks in our team. We know that Lewis Young is a little bit more of that 15-meter chip or the handball, but that's okay. Because if you've got a Sard running pass, of course you're not going to give it to him. But do you think it's more these guys are just too mentally defensive, or is it because we don't have the personnel out there for these guys to actually, I guess, fulfill their role?
I think they're afraid to take the game on, in my opinion. We've definitely got enough players out there that can do the job. You got Sincotta, who's a halfback who's taken it on all game. He's the type of guy that you got to release those types of guys. Obviously, Sardi's that kind of top elite, type of guy, off a halfback who can really get, break open the game. And obviously Doc's good at that too. But we've got the players there. Like with a Cowan down there, he could do the exact same thing. He can run off half. Why can't he? Why can't he run past? You've got Newman, he can do the exact same. I just think these two, once they see that option, that safe option, they just go, yeah. They don't try to think, they just do.
Yeah.
And it's really worrying, but hopefully they can fix that up.
Yeah, it's very worrying in a way because this is not a team anymore that is young kids where you don't want to be scared to take that risk. And whether it's the skill or the mentality of not taking the game on, I don't know what it is. We would never know because the Carlton Football Club would never release their game plan, which is fair enough. But they just give us some hope, I guess, for every single week that we go to a game. We don't want to worry about, shit, we could lose by 10 goals today. Like, it's not about being competitive anymore. It's about being reliable. When we're playing our best football, if not our plan B, on the weekend, that was fucking plan E. But generally, it was
not like, well. It's either your 8th plan or you don't even have a plan B.
Exactly.
You have a plan B up.
Yeah.
I think there was one plan. We get into a game. St Kilda switched around a few things, and we couldn't fucking pick up. Just change something. Change something.
Yeah. And I reckon at halftime, Vossi was probably thinking like, well, you don't really want to change that. But this isn't a review of Carlton Football, but it was more just to do with if you're like 3/4 time, you had to change something at that moment. You're down by 20, change something. You lose by 22. It doesn't make sense. So we'll now transition into the midfield. So we will just touch on 3 players for each midfield. Obviously, with Luke Shuey being injured, I expect him to miss this week. Unlucky for him. I think it was an ankle injury by memory, but it's very unlucky for him because he's actually a very good player for the Eagles. But so I've gone with Cripps, Walsh, Chera up against Kelly, Gaff, and Jinby, which is a great player who's kind of transitioning through that midfield and also transitioning back. Who's a big boy. He's a big boy for his age. He's pretty much like a Cripps like. So with these matchups, is there any players that you think needs a response this week from our end? And is there any players that scare you from their end?
I think that they've got those midfielders that have got that experience. Obviously, you got Kelly and Gaff, and obviously when Shuey's fit, and Elliot Yeo's running through there, and they've got a few others that run through there. But I'm not particularly scared. I just think their impact on games. I know Tim Kelly gets his 35, but sometimes he drifts in and out. Sometimes he gets his numbers, but sometimes it's a real struggle. So hopefully he does that. Hopefully he's in and out all game on Saturday afternoon. But with our midfield, like I said before, like we should be beating teams in the midfield easily. We beat them on the weekend. St Kilda, realistically, stoppage clearance work. We had the ball all the time. We just couldn't get it forward, and I think that's what the mindset's got to be for guys like Walsh and Hewitt, especially. Get it forward.
Yeah.
Get it forward. Like, I don't want to see saying 30 metres gained again. Well, that's just it's quite unbelievable. It's actually really hard to do. Like having the ball, like one kick is 30 metres usually.
Yeah.
Like one kick, and you're having 30 metres for the game. But we should be right with these blokes in the side.
And so to quickly touch on that, so I mean, I have a pretty good understanding, I guess, about AFL and how the stats work. But meters gained, is that the meters gained that the player actually has with the football, or is that what they do with their disposal?
Yeah, kicking the ball and running with it. So it's both.
30 meters gained.
So with the ball, with ball in hand and kicking it. Yeah. So you can go backwards too. So that means Hewitt would have had probably, I don't know how many kicks forward, or handballs. A lot of it's not either sideways or majority black. It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, right. So it was kind of more like if you get it forward, that's when it counts as a meters gained, rather than okay, I get you. Because I mean,
it's quite ridiculous.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, so 1 meter. So his disposal is 29. He's 30 meter gain. So that's 1 meter gain per possession.
Shocking.
One kick can be 50.
Yeah.
You can kick a 50. So just the way you think about that is that's how we lose the game, ultimately.
Yeah.
Junk stats. Him and Wild, junk. All day was absolute junk stats.
Yeah. Like when you actually have the realization for that stat, that is it's as you said, it's harder to probably do. To actually do that, then actually easier to. That is shocking. So that probably has to be a stat on the game plan this week where defensive boys get it fucking forward. So isn't it great to be back? It's great to be back. Fucking. But we'll move on now to the rucks. This is obviously a part of the midfield as well. But Pitnet v Williams. So Nick Nanui still isn't back for the Eagles. He has been very unlucky with his but Bailey Williams, who's actually been quite solid this season, is obviously not a ready-made. I mean, he's not really a well-known ruckman. He's more of a key forward that's unfortunately due to circumstances has to play in the ruck, but he's actually been solid. Last week he played well, but he was playing against a Port Adelaide ruckman. Don't know what his name was, but I think it's his first or second season. So Williams obviously dominated that contest. But Pitnet v Williams this week, also expecting TDK to come back. How do you see this matchup playing out?
Must smash him in the ruck. No ifs, buts, or maybes. He's been like you said, he's been solid. Like in terms of having a crack against some good ruckmen. But seriously, if we're not winning the set of clearances on the weekend, we will never. We can't do it. Like they're a team that's on the bottom, and they're probably going to be on the bottom for the next couple of years, based on not really rebuilding. But yeah, like Williams, man, like he's a forward. He's an okay forward. He's not even like a fantastic forward. And Pitto and TDK really should be licking their lips and really dominating the game. But it'll be interesting because again, that talk's going to happen again. Pitto and TDK together. Is it working or not? Yeah. Because personally, I think if TDK doesn't play enough games this year, I think he'll be out the door. I think he'll go, nah, fuckers, I'm going to go to St Kilda and get $1 million a year
Yeah.
and play there, or Geelong especially. But that's going to be very interesting. But I think these two really should be beating these guys.
Yeah. And if he is being offered the 1 million, why wouldn't you take that up? I don't want to pay him 1 million a year.
No.
But like 750 absolute max.
Yeah.
At the start of the season, I was more saying, oh yeah, 850. I get 700, no more than 700k. He can't even get as the number one ruckman in our side. He's probably more playing as that forward ruck, in my opinion. I think he's that role. He's that sole ruckman.
And he's almost not good enough up forward. I don't think he's good enough.
Yep.
I think he has to be in this long term. He has to be the sole ruckman. He can't be the rotating. I know you're saying how he can play. Like we need him to play both, but he can't. I don't think he has the capacity to play forward. So it's tough. It's either you get rid. You either don't play Pitto and just go TDK full ball, but then you can't do that. And then it's like you can. It's like it's all over the place. It's too hard. So you have to play them both. And then TDK gets in the way of our key forwards. So it's too hard, man. It's an absolute headache. But if he's asking for 850, 800K, I'm not saying yes to that. We need to get more players in. Based on the performances, we've got other needs. We've got other needs.
Yep.
I don't want to be talking about free agency and trade period right now. We should not be talking about it right now. But
exactly. You
still have to talk about it because you can't settle with the list you have every year. You've got to be picking up players. So, and obviously with the whole Gov situation, there might be more money free to use on players. So,
completely spot on. Completely agree. Also to touch, I mean, we won't really touch on this too much, but also with the challenge for Eagles is what they do with their second ruck. Like they don't really have another, whether they bring in a second ruck this week because Williams is doing a lot of that ruck load, which he's not a ruckman. And potentially this week coming up against Pitnet and TDK, maybe they have to bring in a second ruck, but that's going to be a big challenge for them. And whoever is that second ruck and is coming up against our second ruck, that's when it doesn't matter if it's Pitnet v Williams and then TDK versus the second ruck. We should be beating those matchups by a country mile. So it has to be this week. I reckon Pitnet was very good last week, as we mentioned earlier in the episode. He obviously was doing his role because he was getting it to the midfielders. It's just their ball use, everyone's ball use was just atrocious on the weekend. So the ruckman did their role. So now we'll transition now into our last line, which is obviously our forward line. Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow up against Barras and Rotham. Obviously, with McGovern being out for them, that's a big out for the Eagles. But I would expect Rotham to be that next defender up. But out of these two matchups, what do you think? To me, it has to be mouthwatering for our key forwards. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I think these two combined for 5 each last time at Optus Stadium. I'm saying 10 minimum. I'm accepting 10 minimum combined for both of them. Obviously, I've made it known that I'm a big fan of him, but I have not been happy with his performances the last few weeks. Harry Mackay, he's just lazy. He's become a little bit of a lazy footballer. I think the first mark he had on the weekend, he was 30 out and decided to go backwards and chip it to Hewitt on a harder shot. So you're 30 metres out, man. Kick the goal. What do you pay for? We just signed you a 6-year extension. You're 30 out. We can talk about our ball use going forward, which is atrocious as well, right? Not getting the good service, but when you get it, make the most of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like good forwards, they get it done. Jeremy Cameron gets it done, kicks goals anywhere. He's a freak, right? He's kicking goals from everywhere. But Harry Mackay, man, he should be, nailing these shots and big opportunities and he misses them. Big moments in a game and he misses them. He's done it for 2 years and we've let him get away with it. But I think, Curnow been superb. Probably, I'd say he'd probably be top 3 in the BNF right now. He's kicked 21 goals and our next best is Harry with 9. So that shows the issues we're having currently up forward. But these two, minimum 10. I'm not accepting anything other than minimum 10, Pato.
Yeah. So I reckon what will happen is Charlie Curnow would kick 10 and Harry Mackay would kick no, I'm kidding. But it has to be the reason why these two key forwards and why we're so grateful to have them is they're very different. Harry Mackay is a powerhouse sort of forward that can be stay back, and I reckon Charlie needs to be that up, the forward that kind of moves up a little bit in the field because his ball use is so good. Like his field kicking is really good. And the reason why, I mean, I'll touch on Jeremy Cameron, and the reason why he's such a vital component of the Geelong Cats is because he gets up the ground and he's such a great field kick that he can kick that target, but then sprint straight back into that forward line and mark it and kick 6 goals, 7 goals a week. And he's such a vital component. And I reckon Charlie Curnow definitely has the ability to do that. So I think we know how good Harry Mackay can be. I just think that he's just a little bit down in confidence, and it's unfortunate. I know that through the game on the weekend, we were speaking through that game, and I was going off my nana when I saw Harry Mackay kind of look straight. He didn't even look back at the goals. He kind of looked straight away and looked inside and laced out George Hewitt, and I'm like, you're going back.
Yeah.
Again, you're going back. What is going on? Go forward. You marked it 30 metres out, mate.
And then Hewitt's calling for that ball, right? So he's not backing in his forward to kick the goal. And then he handballs it off to Sauce on the run from 50. So you've gone from a 30-metre set shot to a 50 metres on the run.
Yeah.
That cost you games, and it did. There's so many moments in the game, and it can't happen this week. Otherwise, we'll let this side beat us.
Yeah.
On their day, like you said, every team on their day can beat you, and you just can't let it happen. And if we lose this weekend, we lose, then the pressure, the heat valve is on fucking Voss. I will tell you right now, he's in the pump.
Yeah. Oh, we actually didn't do it under the pump segment, but that's okay. That will be returned next week. But to quickly touch on Harry Mackay, because he's been in my head a lot this week, and on the plane back, because I arrived yesterday, so I'm still a little bit jet lagged. But on the plane yesterday, I downloaded the episode that he did on Dylan Friends when Harry Mackay went on the episode, and he kind of spoke about how his transition from when he was kicking probably 0 goals 4 or 1 goal 3 in the VFL or sometimes in the AFL, and how he turned that into 4 goals straight was all down to his mentality with him accepting failure. If you miss, it doesn't matter. If you miss, mate, we're trusting you. We know how good you can be. If you miss, doesn't matter. We move on. We set up defensively. But it just seems to me that right now, Harry Mackay, he's afraid to miss. He's afraid to fail. If you're afraid to fail, you shouldn't be a professional athlete for a start. But you should be accepting of, if I fail, the team is still going to back you in every single fucking day of the week. You're one of the best key forwards in the game when you are playing well. So I reckon I would probably rather Harry Mackay kick 0 goals 5 rather than him have 0 goals 1 and have 4 or 5 inside 50 marks, but passing them off. It baffles me how these guys aren't backing him in, because I reckon it's more on George Hewitt saying, "Mate, I'm here. Give it to me."
Yeah.
He's
you're not even in a better position. If you're in a better position, then okay. But fuck, he's on the 50-metre line. George is not kicking that.
Nah.
He's not kicking that. No. I'm trying to be nice about it, but he's not kicking that goal.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah. And we have to be realistic about these situations where, as you said, these moments, if you do that in the finals game, they're going to absolutely take advantage of that. That doesn't happen in finals. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a very long episode. I know that the past few weeks have been a little bit shorter. So as soon as I come on, because, I mean, you know that I love talking. So, of course, the episodes come a little bit longer. But the last segment for the viewers is obviously the match predictions for this week. Daffy boy, I want your best on ground, point of difference, and winner plus margin.
Best on ground. He's going to turn it from shit meters gain to good meters gain, and he's going to kick 2 or 3 goals. It's going to be Sam Walsh. Sam Walsh is going to be my best on ground. I thought he got enough of it, didn't enough. It was just not good enough from him. Point of difference. it's always a tough one. You can't always pick a really good player because you know that what they're going to do. But point of difference. I was kind of tossing up a few players, but if he does come in, it's going to be Paddy Dow. I think it's going to be the type of game where he can flourish against an Eagles. I know it's a lower side, but he can get his confidence going, and then he can string a couple of games together, which he's been unable to do, really, hasn't he? So, winner and margin. This is just. If it was anybody, if it was a top 8 side, I'd tip against this.
Yeah.
I'd tip against it.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to win. And it's just going to be one of those games where, everyone hops back on. But I think it'll be Carlton 52.
Yeah.
52. It has to. We got to get it. We got to get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done. First quarter, I want to be fucking 40 up. 40 up percentage.
Yeah. Completely spot on. I like those names. And then when you were touching on then about Sam Walsh and kind of responding, and also like just other players kind of, I guess, responding from not so much responding, but just kind of rejuvenating themselves as a footballer. So my best on ground, Patrick Cripps. I reckon it's a time for him to stand up as captain. He's been great the past few weeks. Hasn't gotten enough credit, I don't think. He still has a lot of pressure as a footballer. Like I don't think that's what a lot of people don't understand about Cripps is. He's still leading this football club. Like he is doing a lot more than going out there on field and doing his performance. And he's still doing his performance pretty fucking well. I'll say that right now. Yeah, like, yes, he's not kicking goals, but he's still creating stuff and he's still leading this team. And for people saying Cripps shouldn't be our captain, fuck off. You don't know the football knowledge so low. Cripps is by far our best leader alongside a Sam Doherty, in my opinion, and obviously a Sam Walsh. But I think Cripps needs to respond this week with the best on ground. Don't leave any doubt with these people saying Cripps is falling off. He's got his Brownlow hangover. Get fucked. He's going to respond this week. He's going to be by far the best player on ground. I'm calling 43 and no, I'll probably do 30-1. But point of difference, I've changed mine. I was going to go with Adam Sard, but I've got Harry Mackay.
Yep.
I've got Harry Mackay this week. If he can just really get down to business this week and really try and get his confidence back, if he can kick 2 early ones in the game, he could realistically really start to kick some. And with the lack of key defenders down there for West Coast, it's a big chance for him. So I'm really excited to see his response. And winner plus margin, I've gone Carlton by 42 points. No excuses this week. If we are losing this game, like I don't even know what I'll do. I can't see us losing because we have enough personnel out there, even if we have injuries, even if they bring some players back, it doesn't matter. We are good enough to beat these guys. We should be good enough to beat these guys. So, Carlton by 42 points. But, David Boy, is there anything else you want to touch on for this episode?
Just win, please. And everyone I know it's tough right now. We're in a bit of limbo currently, aren't we? Let's just get the win and then hopefully build into the next 5 tough weeks against tough sides. Get a few wins there. Yeah.
Completely spot on. Absolute pleasure being back in the episodes. I mean, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, the episodes that you've done the past few weeks, Daffy Boy, it's a credit to you because, I know it would have been tough to do it on your own, but it was an absolute credit. And I was trying to watch as many episodes as I could when I was over in America. It was an absolute pleasure watching you, but. Absolute pleasure to be back. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, try and share the channel around. We're still kind of a recent channel. We've been going since about midway through 2021. Still trying to build the channel. Us two supporters, so passionate. Love this club. We're both quite young in the scheme of supporters, but we haven't seen a lot of success. But just hopefully in the next few years, we can really start to see this club build themselves up, and hopefully this podcast as well. So hopefully this brings some enjoyment each and every week to you all viewers. And as always, Daffy Boy, up the baggers.